It's working. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Friday Morning Coffee. We are honored to have with us Dr. Shannon from University of North Georgia, and to introduce him is our very own Jimmy Faulkner.
Now, Dr. Shannon thinks I'm a nice guy, so you people that know me, just keep your mouth shut, okay? It's certainly my pleasure this morning to introduce our speaker. Dr. Michael Shannon became president of the University of North Georgia July 1st, 2023. Mike's a native of New Jersey. He's a first-generation college graduate and was commissioned through Army ROTC. Mike holds bachelor's degrees in aerospace engineering and a master's in aeronautical science from Embry-Riddle University, Aeronautical University. He also holds a master's in health physics and a PhD in nuclear and radiological engineering from Georgia Tech. Pretty smart guy. Dr. Shannon served in the U.S. Army for 20 years, retired in 2015 with the rank of lieutenant colonel. After operational Army services as an infantry and signal corps officer with assignments in the 82nd Airborne Division, the 35th Signal Brigade, the 18th Airborne Corps, and the 2nd Infantry Division, he was selected to serve as a U.S. Army Nuclear and Counterproliferation Officer. For more than 10 years, he provided leadership and technical operational expertise to the U.S. Department of Defense as an expert in nuclear technology issues, and later held leadership assignments with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. Dr. Shannon also served at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point during 2 different leadership assignments. At West Point, he was actively engaged in teaching and research, along with several activities in support of cadets and Army officer development. Prior to joining the University of North Georgia, Dr. Shannon served as a member of the Georgia Tech Executive Leadership Team. In addition, he served in numerous faculty leadership and advisory roles, including as a research faculty member, principal investigator in the Advanced Concepts Laboratory at Georgia Tech Research Institute. Dr. Shannon still holds an adjunct faculty appointment in Georgia Tech College of Engineering and still actively conducts research with his colleagues, including a recent publication in the international journal Viruses. It's a pleasure for me to welcome Dr. Shannon to you all, and please help me welcome my friend Mike Shannon.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Wow. I have arrived. I got introduced by Jimmy Faulkner. I mean, this is wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored to be with you, and what a great crowd, and thank you for letting me join you for, I hear this is a big tradition at Linear Village Estates, so thank you for letting me hopefully not crash your party, but hopefully help you to have a great party here today. So let me just set this up. First of all, we're going to talk about a university that doesn't exist. So that's my intriguing statement of the morning. That's where I'm poking you a little bit. But what I want to do is, first of all, give you a quick update on our, as some would refer, our little country college. And many of you remember where these schools all began, whether it was Gainesville Junior College, some of you may remember, or North Georgia College. And so today, after a couple of evolutions, right? Some evolutions on both sides, we are the University of North Georgia. And I see some fans in the room. I see some shirts. Hello, Colonel Dill, my good friend. I see absolutely everybody's wearing. I'll pay you $20 on the way out, by the way. So thank you for supporting us. But today, so here's where we are today, because I really want to talk about today, and I really want to talk about going forward. We are just under 20,000 students. Wasn't that big in Dahlonega back in the day, Colonel Dill, was it? 20,000 students on 5 campuses. So as you remember, Gainesville State started a campus out in Watkinsville in the late 90s as part of reaching out to that part of the community. And then North Georgia College and State University began a campus in Cumming. And so we still have those campuses. And so when we consolidated 11 years ago, as many of you remember, we consolidated and a baby was born. And that's Blue Ridge. And so Blue Ridge is our baby. Started in 2015. And today we have a beautiful campus up there on Blue Ridge Parkway. And our second building, David E. Ralston Hall, is going up out of the ground. So if you get a chance, if you're out and about and you're running around Blue Ridge, go take a ride by. It is spectacular what we're getting to do up there. So 5 campuses, 20,000 students. So and there'll be a test at the end because I'm a professor, right? So a test. So Dahlonega, of course, Gainesville. So we're still down on Mundy Mill Drive in Oakwood. Cumming, Oconee out in Watkinsville, and Blue Ridge. Wow. And I am the king bottle washer of this whole outfit. It is a lot. And we are incredibly grateful because you don't understand how strategic these places are for us. And our ability to be able to get to serve students around these campuses. It is so impactful. And by the way, we still have students coming in from all over the state and all over the country to come to our university. So we still have that. And then we serve many students locally because for many reasons they have to live at home because of their family situations or they're working or they're doing so many other things. And so that is what is exciting about the work and the mission and work of the University of North Georgia. So that's a little update. That will be on the test at the end. We will stop about 10 minutes early, Jimmy, and take a test. The other thing is and this is exciting, for the first time in 7 years, our enrollment is up. And whereas many schools in the country, you're seeing decreasing enrollments, our enrollment is up nearly 6.5%, about 6.7%. So this time, compared to this time last year, we have about 1,200 more students at our university. That's a lot of kids. And they're not all kids. We have some adults too that are back in school, but that's a lot of people going to school. And so that's exciting, and that's one of the things we were focused on. We got here last summer. We've been here now since July 1st of 23. We've been here about 16 months, going on the 17th month in November. And the first thing we focused on was how do we reverse that trend? And so part of it, there's 2 reasons. First of all, over the last 5 years, because of that and some dynamics, we have seen some significant budget reductions from the state. And those are 2 tied together, by the way. That equals that. And it's not just about the revenue from the tuition that we get from our families, but it's also how the state funds us. And this is the model for the whole university system. So Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, whatever school, we all operate in the same budget system. Now, Georgia Tech kind of prints their own money, but that's a different story. I used to work there. I kind of know how that works. But in all seriousness, that was part of it. But the second part of it, which is more inspiring to me, is the ability for us to impact students. And it tells students college is a good deal. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to use the context of kind of where we are in 2024 and then talk about what we're doing at our university. And we're on a course to build a university that doesn't exist. And that's a pretty bold statement. And if you didn't hear my background, I would consider myself a pretty bold person. I've done some things that the most right-minded people are like, why did you do that? And so we're kind of looking into the face of the narrative in America and saying, you know what, we're going to go in opposite direction. We're going to be disruptive. We're going to disrupt this whole thing. We're going to shake this thing up a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, higher education in America is 388 years old, and it shows its age. A lot of the things we do today were in place for a very long time. When you went to school, when your generations before you went to school. And that's a problem, because what I'm going to talk to you about is the pace at which our world is changing is unprecedented. And I know you're seeing this. You're watching it. You spent a lifetime watching this. You've seen this in your lifetime. It's so how do we create a university that inspires students to be able to operate in that environment? And that's what we're doing today, and that's what we've set out a path to do. And by the way, we have a website we just literally launched yesterday. So if you want to be entertained, if you're bored, maybe you're losing sleep and you want to find some sleeping medicine, you can go to our website. It's exciting. It's not that boring. But I would encourage you to go check out what we're doing. We have a lot of things on there talking about all of these. And I'm only going to hit on a couple of pieces here over the next few moments. 388 years old, and we are still thinking about the university the way we've had historically. I believe now more than ever, young people need to go to college. And look, I'm not an elitist. I am far from it. You are looking at a first-generation college graduate that was born to a single mother who was on welfare. I am not an elitist, but I am someone, whether I have been an American soldier and I served in the Army for 25 years and deployed and looked evil in the eye, or whether my time as an engineer, or now as my time as a leader in higher education, I believe more than ever, young people need to have the experience of a college education, of a values-based college education, because our young people are going to struggle with the ability to think at the pace our world is moving today. And I'm going to convince you over that. One thing I can tell you unequivocally is this. This is the reality we're living in today, is the rate of change is increasing exponentially. So it's not just growing. If you look at this on a curve, it's not growing like this. That's how most things grow, right? They grow linearly. They grow straight. Exponentially means they grow like this. They grow like this. They're in an exponential growth pattern. And that's what we're seeing today in our society, in the economy, and in the world. And I'm going to convince you of this, and all of us have been watching this happen. Right now, this is pretty fascinating to think about. Right now, in the moment we're in, so it is 9:46. I don't have my glasses on. I don't even know what today's date is. But it's 9:46 a.m. and the rate of the pace of change that we're in now is the slowest it's ever going to be. Think about that. Because at 10 o'clock, it's going to be faster. And at 11 o'clock, it's going to be faster. And that's fact, folks. That is what's going on today, and I know you're seeing it. You've seen it across your lifetime. And so imagine that in the environment we're in today with our young people. Our young people are facing dilemmas that we didn't have to face. And I'm not saying we didn't have to face dilemmas. We all did. But today, the rate at which everything moves is just unprecedented. And let me just convince you of a few things. First of all, new communities are being formed. Historically, communities were about geography, right? It was about where you lived and who was around you. So you could say, well, the population was that community. Well, today, because of these things, oops, I just did what he said not to do. I moved something. Now, because of these things, new communities are being formed every day. And let me give you an example. Facebook. You've heard of this thing called Facebook? Of course, right? You go in there, you check on your grandkids, you see what everybody's doing. Facebook today, I just looked this up this morning. Facebook today has 3.1 billion users. 3.1 billion. The population of China as of this morning is 1.42 billion. So what you have today is the largest country on the planet, China, which is a big community, but because of technology, you even have a bigger community like a Facebook. And you can look at this, and we can look at all kinds of different examples of just that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are an interconnected society today. Our globe is interconnected now more than ever. You know, I remind my kids every day, there used to be this blue metal thing out on the street, and you would take something and you would write on it, and you would put it in there, and then it would go from there to someone else, and somebody would walk it up and put it into another box on that house. This is called mail. My kids have no idea what this means. And by the way, one of my kids is a college graduate. I have two in college. Today, it's like that. Remember that? You used to write letters when you were little? When you were younger? And so that's just one example. The second example I would give you is in technology. And technology is part of this, but it's also, again, computers have been changing things for decades. And then it came along in the 90s something called personal digital assistants, PDAs. Remember those things called Palm Pilots? Those little things? Those were cool, right? Everybody was like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. Palm Pilot came around in 1996, if you didn't know. 1996. So today, what we have, because of the innovation of Steve Jobs and Apple, by the way, also at the time were, you all listened to something on the kitchen table called a radio, right? Maybe a transistor radio. And then came a thing called a Walkman where you could carry it with you, right? Remember that? You put little tapes or discs in it. And today, all of that is now combined into this one box. So you can do all of those tasks interchangeably with just going like this, or like this. Or if you're like me, you throw it against the wall. Yeah, I'm really hard on phones. This is a love-hate relationship for me. I'm a soldier, though. I got taught how to break things for many years. So, and what we're finding today, ladies and gentlemen, is that machines are better than humans in doing a lot of things, which is good, right? So today we see it in agriculture. A lot of times a machine can do something in agriculture that was much more effective than a human. We see it, though, that's just a simple example. We see it now in medicine. Many of you are going to the doctor and you're like, what are they going to do to me with that thing? Right? There's some gizmo that the physician is using. Today, as we speak, in Northeast Georgia Medical Center, right up the street, our amazing hospital here that we have, there are physicians performing robotic heart surgery. By the way, I met one of these guys. This guy was like, he was Buck Rogers. I mean, this guy is smart, and he runs a robot that operates robotically on hearts. That's just hard to understand, right? And today there's a thing called a self-driving car. So the next time you're in Atlanta, I'm just warning you, you're going to see this white thing go by. They're called Waymos, W-A-Y-M-O. You can look that up. That's a company. That's a brand. By the way, they're all over Northern California. They're all in Silicon Valley. They're in Phoenix. I was in Phoenix in over the late part of the winter for a meeting and visiting some of our alum. By the way, there's a lot of North Georgia people in Phoenix. I guess the weather's good out there, I'm not sure. And I'm standing on the corner and this white thing streaks by. And I'm like, what is that? Next thing I know, like a minute later, here comes another one, but it was a red light. And I stopped and looked in it. There was nobody in it. And I'm like, where are the people? There were no people. These are self-driving cars, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, they're coming to Atlanta right now. They're being tested in Midtown. Right now, they're being tested. And so what we're finding is that machines can allow us to do tasks that are even better than humans. Now, we could argue all day, I'm breaking the technology. We could argue all day, is a self-driving car better than a human? I mean, we can have that argument. But the bottom line is this is the environment that we're in today, folks. And we could talk about so many different examples. And what does that really mean? And what I want to do is break that down. And really it comes down to three areas: automation, augmentation, and what's called atomization. Bottom line is technology has allowed all of these areas to change. And by the way, this isn't a talk on technology. What I'm trying to inspire you on with is why college matters now more than ever, because of the environments our young people are growing up in. The other piece of that is all of this is creating disruption. And you'll hear me use that word a lot, because what I learned in the Army is, especially in combat, is the environment's constantly disruptive. It's disrupted. You can't control it. It's always changing. And that's what's happening here today. So let me take you back to probably a better example that's more tractable. Let's look at the Industrial Revolutions. We'll take a little history lesson here. By the way, don't worry, I'm not a history professor. I'm a science professor, but I'll take you on a little history lesson. So the first Industrial Revolution, late 1700s. Was anybody there? Good, good. I'm glad we weren't. We all learned about that, right? Late 1700s, and what was the evolution? Well, it was steam, right? Remember that? Steam. Because we took water and we harnessed it through machinery, and we were able to take steam and do unprecedented things. Run sawmills. And you remember the old movies of the sawmills and all of the technologies that came about. The train became very, very prevalent because of steam. Early cars, early vehicles. And then in the late 1800s, what came about? Electricity. By the way, I love to talk about Thomas Edison. By the way, if you want to get a lesson on failure and how to overcome, read the story of Thomas Edison. That guy, he was a tough cat. I would have loved to have him on my fire team, Colonel Dill. I would have loved to have him with me, because that guy just consistently overcame and overcame. It took him 2,774 tries to figure out how to make the light bulb work. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, he never invented the light bulb. Nobody could figure out how to make it work. He made it work. But in that era came about electricity, and we think about that as the second industrial revolution. So steam being the first, electricity being the second. And so the other thing that came in that part was the compartmentalization of labor. In those times, in the late 1800s, labor was starting to be compartmentalized, and you started to see the onset of manufacturing and those types of things. And then we move forward to the 1960s. Now, you were all around for this. You watched this on your watch. This was part of your watch. Sorry to tell you this, I wasn't here yet. Is that okay? Don't be mad. Don't throw me out of the room. I know, you're going to say I'm a baby. I am. I really am. I turned 25 last week. But the 1960s, what happened? Well, we started to see electronics. And this was the advent of the computer, right? A lot of it was because of World War II and the technologies built around World War II. By the way, America is the greatest nation ever. And if you don't believe that, yes. And if you don't believe that for so many reasons, it's not just because of heroes like Colonel Dill. I mean, that's the main reason, but it's because we have created the world. The world has been created in the United States of America. And you want to study a very interesting, I'm a nerd, so I like this stuff. You study from the 1940s through today and see the things that America has created. It is awesome. It is spectacular. And so it was because of those innovations, space, remember John F. Kennedy? September 1962 in Houston, Texas. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. By the way, that's not my words, that's his. I quote him. Remember him? I'm inspired by that, by the way. And so that was that third industrial revolution. And so now we are in the fourth. We're in 4. And what we're seeing is the convergence or the coming together of the cyber. It's kind of an interesting word, right? The cyber and the physical. And we're seeing that in robotic heart surgery. It's the cyber and the physical. We're seeing that all across medical technology. We're seeing that in this. Because this is, in many cases, that's my wife. She's always watching me. She's amazing, by the way. That's the better part of the deal. You should have invited my wife here, Jimmy. You'd had a better talk. Next time, bring my wife. She'll be a much better talk. But this is as much a part of this as any machine has ever been. Nothing influences us more, especially our young people today, than this. So the convergence of the cyber physical. And what does that really mean? Well, let's look at that from the perspective of how people having interacted with the marketplace and the economy. And I swear I'm getting to my point. Just work with me. I'm building you up. I'm softening you up so you'll say, yes, I believe what you have to say. So what does that look like over time? So in the first industrial revolution, remember steam, we're going back to the beginning, the 1700s, it was about what? It was about learning a skill. You had to learn a skill to be able to interact. You had to be able to work in a sawmill. You had to be able to work in a railroad. You had to be able to work in that part of, that was really in agriculture. Those were the foundations of the economy at the time. And so what you saw was, I wrote it down, multi-generational jobs, right? At that point, you ran a sawmill, your kids ran a sawmill, their kids ran a sawmill, and it became multi-generational. And then with the second revolution, and I remind you, that's electricity, right? What did we see? We saw this. We saw multi-generational industries. So not just the skill, but the industry became multi-generational because of the advent of electricity, which led to manufacturing, which led to all of this. And then what did you see in the third? Remember, the third was wrapped around the computer and information technology. Well, at that point, and this was the generation many of you were a part of, because again, I wasn't here in the 60s. Sorry. I was born in 1972. Yes, I am 52 years old and going strong. Although after 25 years in the Army, I don't always feel that way. I jumped out of a lot of perfectly good airplanes, Colonel Dill. But what did you do then? You picked a major. Remember that? You had to pick a major because everybody was like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be this, so I have to go pick a major. And it mattered in that generation. It mattered in that era and in that economy. It's so where are we today, ladies and gentlemen? Here's where we are today as we go into this cyber physical is this. So instead of picking a major, we need to teach students to learn how to learn. And once they learn, they need to be able to create value with that knowledge and with that ability to learn. So it's very different. It's not about a skill. It's not about a trade. It's not about a multi-generational construct. It's not even about a major. It's about learning to learn. And the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is our universities still operate like it's a major. And I'm part of that. I'm in this business. This is the world I work in and I serve in. By the way, I'm here to turn that thing upside down. I'm in there to turn these tables upside down and flip them. Because I want our young people to be prepared for the world that they're going to go into. Just like back then, picking a major was the world that our students needed to be able to operate in and go into. Fair enough? Everybody good with me so far? All right. So let me just prove this to you. So let's go. For the economists in the room, let's make the economy argument. So let's look at the capitalization of the top 5 companies from 1917 to 2017. Fair enough? That's a good block of time. 1917 to 2017. So in 1917, the top 5 companies were all based on one thing: natural resources. It was about wood. It was about paper. It was about metals. Remember we used to make steel in America? There's one steel mill, I think, left in Pittsburgh. But that was our economy back then. And it was about, and I wrote my notes this morning, it was about extracting value. So we took natural resources, right, ladies and gentlemen, and we extracted value from them, and then we used them to drive our economy. It's so the marketplace was formed around that. Remember what I argued already earlier about trades and skills? Skills, then trades, multi-generational industries. So that was 1917. So let's fast forward to 1960, a year you all remember. What were the top 5 companies then? I'll just give you a few. IBM, Konica. Remember this company called Kodak? It's gone, by the way. It's gone. And then GM. And so what were we doing in that time? We were making stuff. And we were making a lot of it. And we were making it fast and we were making it cheap. And that was the name of the game in the 60s. You all probably remember this. It's so in that environment, picking a major made sense, right? Does that make sense to you? That's why that made sense, because you wanted to figure out how to plug into that. Now let's go to 2017. And this is actually even old. I mean, 2017, 7 years ago, right? Almost 8. It's almost 2025. By the way, Christmas is coming. You better go do your shopping today. Top 5 companies. Apple. And not the thing on a tree. These guys. Microsoft. The stuff that's on this thing. Amazon. By the way, Amazon is the greatest invention ever. So I can sit in, this is my living room chair. I can sit in my chair in my boxer shorts. And I can sit like this and I can say, "Hey Alexa, I want a box of protein bars." And 2 hours later, the doorbell rings and it shows up. It's unbelievable, folks. It is unbelievable. And if you haven't seen what Amazon has done in our economy, you need to drive around and look at all these little blue vans. By the way, early on, they were working with UPS and FedEx, and that was the thing. And they're like, "Man, we're beyond you." They did their own thing. They have more shipping capacity in Amazon than FedEx and UPS, and that's what those companies do. Amazon doesn't ship things, they sell things. And so Amazon. And then the last one is Facebook. 2017, top 5 capitalized companies. And so what are we doing now? Well, in all of these, have you noticed? So from 1917 to 2017, we had a total shift from natural resources. Now it's all about information. And the name of the game today is how to learn faster. Use information and learn faster. And you're hearing that, folks, in these things we talk about called artificial intelligence, AI. By the way, don't be scared of it. By the way, it's not new. It's been around since the 70s and 80s. It's been around part of our evolutions in space. It's been around. But why has it gotten to be a big deal lately? Is because our technology to support it has gotten so much better. Our computers are better, they're faster, our ability to store data and information is faster. But the name of the game today is this: learn faster, and data is the learning tool. So, where are we today? And I'm going to get to my so what and I'm done. Our young people, ladies and gentlemen, are not growing up the same way we did and you did. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the greatest challenge of the information age that we're in today, remember I said it's exponential? It's like this, right? It's not like this. It's like this. Oh, I see Jack Anthony there. Jack Anthony he flies drones, right, Jack? The technology you've seen in cameras, you could write a book about how you've seen cameras evolve. And it's gone like this. And there's just so many examples. But what we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is our young people being educated in a system that was developed for the third revolution, not the fourth. And so my thesis to you today is we need to create a university that's never existed before, because we need to be able to teach young people how to operate in this new environment. And that gets me to my point. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest challenge with this information age isn't this technology. We have always had technology evolving. And I hear people today say, oh, well, these computers, and it's just, no. It was the same thing when we went from the horse to the steam engine. That was a big deal for those people in that moment. It was a big deal. When you didn't have to ride behind the horse on the farm and you could ride the engine on the farm, that was game-changing, just like technology is today. So the challenge isn't the technology. The challenge in the information age, ladies and gentlemen, is the compression of time. Time is getting shorter. Now, minutes and seconds, we haven't changed physics. Seconds, minutes, hours are still the same, but it's different. Remember that blue box I used to tell you? So it was perfectly reasonable back then for you to put that letter in the mail and wait, and somebody to receive it, and somebody to send you a response, right? Or there was this thing in our kitchens, and I will never forget as long as I go, my grandmother's kitchen. You would walk up to the wall and there was this thing and you would pick it up and you would go, and when someone didn't answer on the other side, what did you do? You hung it up and you moved on with your day. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our young people, and we're a part of this too, but you got to understand what's going on in the minds of our young people. Immediately, as soon as this thing dings, somebody expects you to do something with it. Immediately. And it's coming at you like crazy. I get on average, and I carry 2 phones. I've got one down there. By the way, Jimmy, if that rings, you need to answer that. I get on average as the president of a university 300 email a day and probably 100 text messages a day. And this is the hotline, by the way. You see whose picture's on that. When this one rings, I stand at attention. This is my kids, my wife, my friends. And so imagine how it is for our young people today, 17, 18, 19 years old, and they're immersed in this. I'll give you one more data set, and then I'll talk to you about what we're going to do about it. Here's one more data set. This is the data. Again, remember I told you the rate at which change happens now is never going to be this time. It's always going to continue to get faster. So today, a 10-year-old child today, listen to this. This is going to blow your head's going to explode. A 10-year-old child today, in their professional lifetime, will change their will change their employer. So who they work for. By the way, my grandfather sold insurance. He worked for Allstate. Remember, you're in good hands. And he spent a career there. And he had a thing called a pension. Remember those things? They don't do that anymore. Young people today, 10 years old, they're going to change that employer 17 times. 17. They're going to have 17 different places that they work for. And I'm not talking about entrepreneurs who have customers. I'm talking about people who have employment in the marketplace, who have jobs. They're going to change that 17 times. And they're going to change their profession 5 times. That's what the data tell us. So ladies and gentlemen, we can't prepare our young people for their journey by picking a major. We have to prepare them to be able to operate in this environment. So what are we doing about it? So at the University of North Georgia, we're creating a university that's never existed. Ever. And that's a bold statement considering we've been around for 151 years. North Georgia Agricultural College was founded in Dahlonega, Georgia in 1873. Second oldest public university in Georgia. Very proud of that. Of course, the University of Georgia is the oldest land-grant university in the country. Second oldest. We've been around a long time. But that's great, but it doesn't serve this generation. Like, that legacy is great, but how do we now serve these young people who are in this environment today that is unprecedented and is going to see this in their lifetime just continue that curve? And remember, that curve's not going like this, that curve is going like this. So here's what I believe, ladies and gentlemen. And here's the bottom line of what a university that doesn't exist looks like. It's about connecting our young people to the timeless principles of old. The principles that you and I grow up in. Because what we see today is it's different. So back when we grew up, how did it work? All of the knowledge was at the levels of experience and wisdom, right? Your parents, your grandparents, your bosses, all of that. It's so you were down here, it was a reverse pyramid. And you worked your way up over that in time. And today, young people have unlimited access to knowledge. Hey Siri. And like that, within a millisecond, an answer comes back. I tell my kids all the time, there's this place that I used to go to called a library. And you would walk in and you would pull something off the shelf called a book. Remember the encyclopedia? By the way, when my mom got an encyclopedia in 1978, I was the coolest kid in town. I would pull those books out and I would read them cover to cover. Now today, there's none of that anymore. It's all right here. And so the challenge we're in today is our young people have knowledge, but they have no wisdom. And there's a disconnect. And the tension exists between this disconnect. And what I believe a university that doesn't exist does is it becomes the connective tissue between these two things. From the timeless principles of old that we all grew up in, and I consider myself a part of your generation because I grew up without computers and phones and all of that, not like the young people are today, to this new world perspective that we operate in. So what does that mean for us? Leadership is everything. Being able to be decision makers and thinkers is everything because the cycle is compressed and it's very fast and it's very rapid. And you have access to so much information now than you had before because even if you were a nerd, you didn't read the encyclopedia through and through. You just couldn't. But now you can get it like that and like that and like that and like that. And so what we're working on is how do we equip a student to be able to operate in that? We also believe that every single one of us, all of us, every single one of us is created for purpose. And our journey takes us toward that purpose. So I feel like my job is, how do I equip every student that we get to serve to walk toward that purpose, so that they have things along the way in their, we used to call it a kit bag in the military, right, Colonel Dale? That you have things in your kit bag along the way that when you're encountering those situations, those dilemmas, those challenges, those opportunities, you'll be able to respond to that. You'll be able to critically think. You'll be able to have good decision making. So it's not teaching students what to think, it's teaching them how to think. And how to think in this environment that is changing like that and like that and like that. So we have just launched a leadership foundry. And we're very proud of our tradition at North Georgia, and I'll use Colonel Dill as an example of building leaders. We have built leaders for 151 years, and there's no better example than our Corps cadets. The Military College of Georgia, you should be damn proud of that. Yeah, it's a big deal. And we're still building lieutenants. And I could talk to you about the Corps all day, by the way. That's exciting for me. But one of our challenges is our Corps right today is about 700 cadets. We have about 700 in the Corps. We're growing to 1,000. That's really exciting. It's part of our Corps of the Future initiative. But we have 20,000 students. So what about the other 19,000 students? We need to give them access to a signature leadership experience, so that they can, through values-based decision-making, operate in this environment. You hear all this stuff about mental health, ladies and gentlemen? It's because of these damn things. Excuse me. Can you scratch that out when I say it? I just get frustrated because kids watch this and it tells them you're not good enough, or you don't look a certain way, or you don't have what they have. And we all know, because of our wisdom, that's all, probably most of that's a lie, right? That's not reality. But this thing, man, everybody looks better on this thing. Man, look at the vacation they're on. When you don't realize that it's like raining there, but they took the picture on the sunny day and they keep sending it out. And so how do we equip our students to do that? So that's what we're working on, so that we can close this gap between wisdom, knowledge, and equip our students to be able to operate in this marketplace, in this economy, and in this society, where they're going to have to confront some things, folks, that I don't think we had to confront. Don't get me wrong, we had to do hard things, and our generations have done hard things, but I think it continues to get harder and harder. There are these things called misinformation, fake news. You've heard about it, right? And a lot of this is generated because of these technologies. You know, and I tell my kids all the time, the ones that I own 4, by the way. I own 4 of these. One of them was a North Georgia student, by the way. So I consume our product, by the way. But I tell them all the time, don't believe a thing you read on this thing. Don't believe any of it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. But just like we had to do back in those days when we didn't have these things, we had to be able to think and be able to interact and have conversation and be able to debate and be able to grapple and get in the wrestling ring of life and the debates. Instead of just saying, well, bing, here it is. Anybody can do, you realize anybody can put anything they want on this anytime. And so that's what we're working on. We're also working on so that is a huge opportunity for us. We're really excited about it. A values-based leadership signature experience for every student on every one of our campuses. We're really incredibly excited about that. It's going to be hard. The Corps is still chugging along, and the Corps is still going to have, probably one of the most immersive. By the way, learning about leadership is experiential. It's hands-on. You can't learn how to lead by, listening to a lecture or hearing somebody tell you about it. You got to be in it. You got to be a part of it. And so that's what we're working on really hard and scaling that out. The other thing that we're working on is how do we bring relevance to our key academic programs? Relevance and differentiation. How do we make ourselves different so a student wants to pick the University of North Georgia? And so we're focusing on 4 key areas: science, technology, engineering, and math. I think I've argued that for a long time. Also in the area of workforce development, teachers, nurses, business leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, agricultural leaders. The number one economic driver in Georgia today continues to be agriculture. Is that fascinating in 2024 with everything that I talked to you about? That's the number one revenue generating part of the Georgia economy. It's agriculture. National security, another huge area. And it's not just national at a federal level. It is state, local, regional, national. And how do you operate in those environments? And then finally, arts. And I see my arts friends. And thank you for letting us have some of our faculty over here to entertain you. By the way, we took an amazing trip to Carnegie Hall. Our faculty, North Georgia, played Carnegie Hall. It was amazing. And so I still believe the arts, and I talked about it in this very room a couple of months ago. The arts bring us together. No matter where we come from and what we believe, we come together through the arts. And the arts open us up to be able to have the conversations we need to be able to operate in this environment. So we're putting a lot of effort into the arts. And by the way, our Oakwood campus, our Gainesville campus, is going to become the arts center of the universe for Southeast U.S. We are planting our flag. The arts cross through UNG Gainesville. We're putting a lot of effort into it, and it's really an exciting time. And then, of course, we're putting a lot of effort into the core of the future. How do we deliver for our Army? Because now more than ever, we need this. Let me give you something to celebrate. Over half of the officers in the Georgia National Guard, Georgia Army National Guard, are North Georgia alum. Over half, about 60%. The TAG, the Adjutant General of Georgia, the senior most commander, the 2-star general, is a North Georgia graduate. The commander of the Georgia, under him is the Army National Guard and the Air Force. The commander of the Georgia Army National Guard is a North Georgia graduate. You're seeing a theme here, right? Guess who just did the most impressive work during this last hurricane? And by the way, North Carolina got hit, but way before North Carolina, there is a straight line from Valdosta to Augusta, out to all the way through Savannah, all the way back up there. It was the Georgia Army National Guard. The hero of that battle was Lieutenant Colonel Craig Henderson, North Georgia class of 2007, a biology major, by the way. And his unit went in and opened up roads, got ambulances moving, got water flowing, got food into the grocery stores. Little old North Georgia kid. Kid who started right here in Dahlonega about 20 years ago. And so that's what we're working on, folks. And when you put all that together with 5 campuses, which we believe what we call the power of 5, because we're able to serve differently. I served for 8 years at Georgia Tech, loved it. I'm a double yellow jacket, love the place. But it's a very specific, it's not a geographical campus. These are very specific geographical campuses, and there's 5 of them. And so we're able to now serve at a much greater level. And so because of that, the power of 5 and all of these efforts that we're working on, we are creating a university that doesn't exist yet. We're getting there. So I hope you were interested in this. All I would ask is if you have any opportunity to engage with us, you are always welcome. We have amazing athletics. Our sports teams, by the way, we just had the best athletic season in our history. In the history of North Georgia, 151 years, best athletic season in our history. We also have incredible arts. We're going to bring as much of that here as you will let us. And we just so appreciate your willingness to be able to help us. And, Mike, how can I help you? Tell people. tell your friends. Give people a call and let people know that that is what you want. Questions? Okay, questions.
Questions. Thank you. I'm going to hand the microphone.
Questions? Sorry.
My question is, how are you getting the faculty?
Yeah, that's great.
Do I need to finish the sentence? I think the kids come in with their telephones because they don't listen to us, because we're not doing what we should be doing to help them.
Right.
But I hope they'll get there.
Yes, ma'am. It's hard. You know, one of the things in all of this that I didn't mention, and I think we can all agree, nobody likes change. Nobody likes change. Humanity doesn't like change. We like it to be the way we like it. And so as we think about how do we inspire our faculty, I think our faculty, well, let me just say this, our faculty understand these dynamics because they're a part of it. They're living in the economy, to your point. They're now dealing with having students have these technologies in their pockets. Obviously, this is being grappled with at the younger levels in K through 12 in those areas. And so many of our faculty will tell our students, don't bring the phones in the room. Yeah, and some of our faculty don't, and the results vary. And so I do think I'm spending a lot of time with our faculty, helping them to understand. Look, we're not trying to move your cheese. We're trying to prepare these students for what they're going to face. And I think it's resonating. It's still a journey, and that's a part of what I get to do as a leader. So it's a great question. It's hard. There's really no good answer other than we are bringing people along with us every step of the way. So, sir.
Doctor, thank you for spending your precious time with us this morning. I want to acknowledge and express appreciation for your Dr. Joanna Kim. She, of course, is a brilliant pianist, but she's also a remarkable organizer. Her community outreach program is just marvelous. It includes the concerts here. You've attended one of them. I certainly want you to know we appreciate your fostering that kind of environment that lets her do that, encourages her to do that. She'll be here again with another group of your faculty and students November 10th, Sunday afternoon. You might want to come hear her again. The Patriot Choir is also going to be here that day. They're a strong part of your heart, I know. Thank you again.
Thank you. Hey, Joanna is fantastic. If you haven't met Joanna, by the way, she meets no stranger. Joanna meets no stranger. She is a wonderful, wonderful colleague. And that's the reason I'm excited about our faculty. We have so many folks on our faculty that are like Joanna. Joanna is awesome. She went to New York with us, and it was so much fun. She's a lot of fun, by the way. And it was so great to have that. And I'm so glad they're coming back. And you know, you could tell Joanna I said they can come as much as you all want them. We just got to get the students over here, right? Yes, sir.
I appreciate the fact that you have the Hope Scholarship is a great advantage for Georgia schools, but you have not addressed the cost of education. Mm-hmm. Hiring good faculty, the brick and mortar. How do you address this going down the road? Because I'm sure, you know, the cost of colleges now is just something that the average family will never be able to afford, and it's just getting worse. Have you got a solution for that?
That's a great question. So before this, I was the chief business officer at Georgia Tech. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And Georgia Tech's it's $2.8 billion organization. We're about a $500 million organization. So here are the facts. Hope Scholarship is probably without question the best merit-based scholarship program in America if you look at all the states. Also, Georgia is the 6th cheapest state for public higher education. So if you look at all 50, Georgia is number 6. And so we're still not 1, but we're not up there in those other areas. It is still expensive, and to your point, here's the problem with Hope Scholarship is it's merit-based. And look, I am all about merit. My whole life has been predicated on it. But we have a lot of great students, a lot of great kids who are sometimes fall just below that for whatever reason. Not because they're bad kids or they weren't doing the right thing, they struggled. And so that's what I'm focused on, to your question, sir, is how do we close that gap? And I've worked really hard with our foundation, and Jimmy will tell you, I've beat this down on our foundation of how do we close that gap. The great news is this is the richest country in on the planet. There are a lot of very generous people, and we have seen giving at North Georgia go from, and I'll just give you some numbers, from about 15 years ago, over a 4-year period, we raised about $9 million. The past 4 years, we've raised over $50 million in funds for scholarships and these kinds of things to close that gap. I am always looking at ways to make things more affordable and to run our operation very cleanly. I had 22,000 employees I was responsible for at Georgia Tech, and I was always looking for how do we do it more efficiently. The world is really expensive too. Our folks don't make a lot of money. And when you're trying to live in Dahlonega, Georgia, or Gainesville, Georgia, in this day and age, I just bought a house in Dahlonega, Georgia. I'm very blessed because I'm the president. The average employee that comes to North Georgia to work can't afford the houses that are for sale right now in Dahlonega. There's just nothing there. And so that's what I'm working on every day, is how do we continue to incentivize people to want to do this kind of work, because people have a lot of choices. How do we keep costs down? I am a philanthropy-based strategy when it comes to capital. And so you'll see that in everything we're doing in terms of buildings, brick and mortar. Deferred maintenance is a big challenge. We have a lot of old buildings that are, quite frankly, in very big need of maintenance. And it just happens, right, over time. And so juggling all of those is what I'm working on every day. And really, how do we get more kids into school and make it more affordable? Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at somebody. The only reason I got to go to college was 2 reasons: the United States Army and the Knights of Columbus. I had a Knights of Columbus scholarship from my local, where I grew up, and I had an Army ROTC scholarship. It's the only way I got to go to college. And I'm the first one in my entire family to go to college. So trust me, this is personal for me. Yes, sir.
When I joined the faculty years ago, I was told that the legislature picked up about 65% of the tuition, not room board, et cetera. Now I was told that the legislature picks up about 35%. And many of the fellows that we have in the legislature went to school when the state paid a whole lot more of their education than they do now. It looks like they're getting both sides of the coin.
Yes, sir. That is a fact. That is the fact, and there's a great chart on this that you can pull down online. That ratio has significantly changed. I will say this, and I'm trying to be as level-headed as I can. If you look at us versus other states, we're still doing quite well. We are still doing well in that. That ratio is still changing, but compared to many other states, and that's why you're seeing some of these costs. Look, North Georgia is a great deal. It's expensive, but it's a great deal. My oldest daughter went to a private school. It was $65,000 a year for her tuition. And let me caveat that. The only reason she went there is she had a full scholarship, because there is no way this guy was able to pay that, even with the means that I have. And so some of these schools have their costs are exorbitant. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a decrease in the number of colleges and universities around America. It's going to be focused around public education, and I think we're going to put the squeeze on that very carefully. Trust me, I'm in the ear of our officials all the time, and you know these names. My neighbor in Dahlonega, I'm talking to all the time about this, and they're helpful.
If he's a legislator, tell him I know what he paid for tuition when he was a
I'm going to tell him that. I'm going to tell him that. I'm going to remind him of man, you got a good deal. You need to bring that back for these young people.
Thank you, Dr. Shannon. Did I hear another question? This is exciting news, scary news, and I'm ready to enroll.
Let's go. Well, thank you all. Have a great day. I appreciate it.